Hi guys, I'm Brittany,
And I'm Cindy.
and we're with the Office of Health Promotion and Wellness. If you wouldn't mind checking in, you can use the QR code that's on the screen right now, and that'll take you to D-Hub, and you can just check in, or there's a link below as well that you can type in, and I will actually copy and paste that link into the comments. And then we'll get started in just a second. Cindy, what kind of dog do you have?
I don't have a dog. It's my neighbor's dog.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a very loud puppy. I don't know what kind he is, but he's super tiny and very energetic. So I get up in the middle of the night just listening to his barking sometimes.
Little dogs are always the most energetic. Okay.
I don't know if you guys can hear it, but yeah, you guys can hear it.
Okay, we will go ahead and get started in just a minute. I'll give you guys time to check in. Welcome to Wellness Wednesday, guys. Today our topic is trauma processing. So we have a really cool presentation that we're excited to share with you. Okay, I think I'm gonna start moving into the presentation. Whoa. Okay. Well, welcome, guys, to Wellness Wednesday with Health Promotion and Wellness. Today we're going to talk about processing trauma. So we're with the Office of Health Promotion and Wellness. We focus on empowering the DePaul community to embrace a healthy lifestyle and creating a culture of health and wellness and well-being that fosters personal academic success. In collaboration with university and community partners, we work to provide holistic education, support, and resources for individuals in our DePaul community and establish a long and sustain long-term healthy behaviors.
Yeah, so why don't we touch a little bit on what trauma is? So as you guys can see on the slide, trauma is basically the result of a deeply distressing or disturbing experience that often results in an overwhelming amount of stress that exceeds one's ability to cope or integrate the emotions that are involved with that experience. And it's really important to understand that trauma can be very different for every person, and it's not a matter of whether it's a scale, whether what's more traumatic and less traumatic. It's more of a spectrum that goes sideways. So there's trauma that can be very visible, such as maybe, for example, there was a car accident, and so you can see somebody wearing a neck brace, you can see the actual physical injuries. However, then the trauma that leads to the person maybe not wanting to go back into a car isn't, that's not that visible, but it's still very distressing as if it were physical. So those are the very important things you should know about trauma, that it can be physical, you can actually see it, but then again, it can also be very not visible, but that does not mean that it's less important or less traumatic.
Well said, Cindy. So we're going to first touch on trauma integration, as told by Dr. Odella Craybill. Trauma integration is a process in which trauma is acknowledged to be part of an ongoing reality, but is no longer at the center of one's experience. It's surrounded by awareness of resources for coping with the past and the present adversities. And what we mean by integration is an internalized sense of safety, particularly in connection with yourself and others, that allows you to integrate your traumatic experience into your larger life story in a way that acknowledges your personal strengths and pushes you to not necessarily recover, because recover is not the best word, but understand that like your traumatic experience happened, and allow you to process it and work through it and use it and integrating into your everyday life in a way that is allowing you to present yourself in the best way you can.
So there's actually 6 different steps to trauma, and it's again according to Dr. Odella. And the first one is routine. So it really talks about the fact that the body does have different functions that kind of work routinely. And so one of the fact is you want to make sure that even when you do have this trauma, that you incorporate to your routine, because that can be disrupted based on what the experience was. Then there's also the event. So this is usually when a trauma does occur, and then this is kind of what activates your survivor mode. So you have a set routine, and then something that impacts it is the event that is being caused. Then we have this withdrawal, which is this instinctive and almost like essentially healthy human response to this event that occurred, where we tend to kind of withdraw from it and try to avoid from it. However, then we also have the awareness, which is just knowledge of self. So you have to really understand what's the context of the event that happened, and then the dynamic trauma that does help a survivor move from withdraw into awareness of, okay, I have already withdrawn from this event, but now I need to be aware of why it is that I'm withdrawing from certain activities from my routine, and really understand that it's based on this event that happened that caused for me to have this withdrawal, and now to be aware of that. And then finally, the fifth one is action. So it is making a conscious decision and a choice to take action based on this event that happened and how to move forward from it. And that's where we finally get to integration, which is integrating your own personal life, knowing that this traumatic event happened, and then moving on from that.
So now we're going to move into trauma processing. Trauma processing is your own experience and the way you process your trauma as it is unique to you or as is on your trajectory. There's no one way in which you should be able to process your trauma because it's a personal experience. So however it is best process it for you is what you should go by. There are a few, mainly 3 steps that Dr. Kathleen Young suggests. The first one is having an established or therapeutic alliance, which means you feel connected to whoever is helping you process your trauma, or you feel connected to yourself and you have a reasonable trust between yourself and your experience, or yourself and another person who you are processing your trauma with. The second is having the capacity to be and stay present in the moment. She talks a lot about how you can't process trauma if you're not in the moment and you're not taking everything for the moment that it's in. If your mind is somewhere else, then you can't really help yourself heal and integrate. And then the third is having an integrative experience, what we kind of touched on. And this step is focused on creating meaning, and that new meaning moves is the goal that you have of moving beyond trauma-based beliefs and integrating your experience into your everyday life and strengthening yourself.
Then we have post-traumatic growth. So this actually is a very, again, positive psychological change that results on you having this experience, this event, and then moving on from it. So it really is this process that can come into rotation in many different ways, again, based on your own traumatic experience and what you decide to go on from it. The very first step would be taking action. So making a conscious, and this is the most important part, a conscious choice to get help, whether this is self-help or seeing somebody else. The important part is making sure that you have that cautious where it's not somebody else trying to get you there. You yourself are understanding this happened to me or this happened, and I'm going to make a choice to move on from it or to have some sort of closure from it. Then we have reflection. This is the important step where you try to find meaning in what happened, what you're doing about it, and how you're going to value things or how you're going to evaluate things from this point on. And then finally, we have contemplation, which is really incorporating the meaning of what you found while you were reflecting into your daily and then future.
And Dr. Crable kind of suggests a three-step method for using post-traumatic growth. The first is action, so making a conscious choice to get help or helping yourself. And then from there, moving on to reflection. So finding meaning in what has happened to you, what are you going to do about it, and valuing the things that have resulted from your growth or your experience, and then using those for coping with your trauma. And then contemplation is the third one, and it's mostly like how to incorporate the meaning of your experience and how you've gained it and how you can implement your experience and the growth that you've made in your daily and your future actions.
So we have some resources that you can definitely get for help at DePaul. The first one, obviously, would be our Office of Health Promotion and Wellness. You can find us on our Instagram, our Twitter, our Facebook at that address, or just email us. And we have confidential sources as well as just sources that can help you really understand, go through what it is the event that you have experienced or somebody that you know it has experienced, and then also give you resources based on what you think you need to really understand how that can affect your health and really have a holistic approach to it. Then we also have university counseling services, which again is also confidential. If that's what you're looking for, it can definitely help you with understanding your trauma and then really talking about it or seeing what would be best for you or for somebody who you know. And then we have the Dean of Students as well as the Office of Gender Equity and Title IX. So again, we have different resources based on the different types of trauma. And again, it's very important to note that it's not, I think some people might associate trauma right away with something that happened to you or something of that sort, but it can also sometimes be something that you saw. And so it's something that really happened to you, but the experience that you had or that you saw. And that can also lead to trauma. So it's a very wide spectrum. And as long as it is impacting you or something that you care about, we are always here to help and make sure that you are healthy and in the right space, whether it's, in your mental health or whether it's just making sure that you are focused on what is important and not stressed out.
So these are some of the sources that we use in our presentation. We strongly encourage you to visit Dr. Crabell's website as well as Dr. Young's website because they have really good resources on talking about trauma and trauma therapy. And now we're just going to kind of move on from our presentation. Okay, there we go. Okay. Do you have anything else you'd like to share about trauma, Cindy, and trauma, like processing trauma, or do you have any tips that you can share?
I think it's very important to make sure that you know there's people who you can talk to, regardless of what it is that happened. I think sometimes people definitely think about situations that might be involving somebody being like sexually assaulted, or a lot of that trauma might stem from there. But it's important to know that it can happen. Like I said in an example, it doesn't have to be you who experienced it personally. You might know somebody who had that. Maybe somebody disclosed something to you, and so it's important to not only know how to deal with if you have the trauma, but if somebody is close to you, there's also resources where you can also deal with what that impacts you and how that affects you, knowing those personal details. So I think it's definitely important to keep an open mind where it's not, again, like visibility. It really can depend, and it can come from anybody, and it can be any sort of experience that really has made somebody feel uncomfortable or not as healthy as they used to be.
I agree with that. I also think it's really important to not compare your journey. Like your journey is your journey, your experience is your experience. Someone else cannot tell you what happened, like how you should move on from your experience or how you can move to integration from your experience. Everything that you do and the way you process is personally your own and uniquely your own. And I think in not comparing your journey to others, you really get to focus on how you can best help yourself and how your timeline looks. The trajectory of the way you integrate your experience into your larger life isn't like based off of someone else's timeline. It's uniquely your own, and it might take longer or it might take shorter. And I think there are a lot of ways in which you can kind of take your experience and make it the best that you can for you. As Cindy said, you should keep an open mind to resources, but it is definitely understandable if it's something that you want to process on your own, and self-help is a great option as well. I think that's everything that I have.
Yeah, I think you brought a very good point. I think sometimes you might think, recovery, or not recovery, but just dealing with a trauma has this like linear way, and it's not. It's not linear. There might be days where you are going towards your goal, and then something will happen, and you'll slip off again. And that's just part of the journey. And you should never feel as if you're doing it wrong, because the first step again is making that cautious choice to change, to take action. to understand what is that this event has shaped who you are now and how that has impacted from who you were. And so that entire time frame of going from understanding and all the steps that come with just processing your trauma, it's super important to understand that there's no way of doing it wrong as long as you are taking the steps of identifying the event, then contemplating it, and really processing it. So there's really no right or wrong way of doing it. It's just a matter of your own personal journey.
Yeah, that was perfect, Cindy. As always, feel free to come visit us at the Office of Health Promotion and Wellness. It may look a little different right now because we are online, but we have Wellness Wednesdays every Wednesdays. We have Hot Seat with Heat on Mondays, and those are just our weekly events. And then we also have other workshops and events that we put on. You can find us on DHub or keep up with us on social media. Our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter are at Healthy DePaul. And in our virtual office, you can come visit us, set up appointments to meet with some of our pro staff, and you can talk about scheduling or you can set up wellness conversations. Yeah, just feel free to come see us. We appreciate you checking in with us today on Wellness Wednesday, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.